window. But let's talk about Josh Allen next. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, really good so far this season. Obviously, this week, us talking about Josh Allen in the MVP conversation may seem weird to some people. People may be thinking that we're talking about the Jaguars, Josh Allen, because unfortunate loss for the Buffalo Bills. But that's the thing is, like, when we have these discussions, you can't be a prisoner of the moment. You can't look at the loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars and say, oh no, Josh Allen can't win MVP because he had a poor game against the Jaguars. Everybody loses games. That tends to happen in the NFL. Matt, what's the case for Josh Allen winning the MVP this year?
I do think that it's not. I think he's kind of like started to slow down a little bit. He was my pick coming into the year, so I had very high expectations for Josh Allen. I still think that they're probably the favorite in the AFC. Not saying that super confidently. I think there's other teams to mention for sure, but I would still probably have them atop that list. Horrible loss to the Jags. That's a given. You lost 6-9. That's horrible. And Josh Allen was not even the best Josh Allen that day. That was the best part I think about that game. So yeah, right now it might hurt. Maybe this is when you go and you make the bet for Josh Allen because his odds slip if you're someone that really believes in him. I think his case is that, like we talked about Brady, I think he's going to finish as the 1 seed in the AFC. I think that they could potentially be, in this year really, really hot, really get going. The offense is clicking. He has good pieces around him. I think he has a guy in Stephon Diggs who, like, last year he did come onto the scene, but I think he's probably been a little underrated throughout the entirety of his career. Dawson Knox, he's young. People don't really know about him. He's had a great start to the season. Zach Moss is a good running back. I like him a little bit more than Singletary. I think and Singletary's stepped up the last, I think, couple weeks a little bit more. At least I've seen him make more plays lately. But early on in the year, Zach Moss especially was making a ton of plays. So I think he has a lot of good pieces around him. Great coaching staff. I think he's just a good player too. I think he's a great player. So I think he's going to put up those numbers. But it is a little bit harder to say that right now just because of all of the success, I think, for Brady individually and that offense. So right now, I think he's probably one of the top 3 guys. But I don't know if he's the favorite right now.
Yeah, for me, when I look at Josh Allen, I think he probably has a better case this year than last year in terms of what could be said at the end of the year. Because last year, I think one of the main reasons why he didn't win the award, because everyone looks at it and they're like, what was different from the year before that? And everyone says, there's a man named Stephon Diggs there now. And Diggs was like the best receiver of the year because Davante Adams ended up missing games. So leading the league in receiving and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, Stephon Diggs is balling. This year, Stephon Diggs isn't that offense like he was last year. Now, Stephon Diggs is still a great player, very underrated, I think. But he's utilizing everybody. Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. Matt, you brought up Zach Moss, Dawson Knox. Like, these guys are all getting involved. And I think that's helping Josh Allen more because it's not nearly as dependent on Stephon Diggs as it has been last year. So when you look at that, and I think they do end up playing some tough teams. They beat the Chiefs, and I think everyone looks at that and they're like, oh yeah, the Chiefs, they're kind of bad. The teams that the Chiefs have lost to are very good football teams. They lost to the Ravens, 2-loss team. They lost to the Chargers, 3-loss team. They lost to the Bills, 2-loss team. They lost to, I'm sorry, I believe they're a 3-loss team now. They lost to the Titans, 2-loss team, number 1 team in the AFC. Like, that's something where at the end of the year, the Chiefs may only have 4 losses or 5 losses. And you look back at that game and be like, remember when Josh Allen torched the Chiefs in that big time, prime time football game? Like, those are the things that, like, in the moment, it may not seem huge. But when we're looking back at the season and like the big games that they had and the teams that they were against, Josh Allen puts up big performances against really good teams. People didn't watch this Jags game. People didn't watch week 1 against the Steelers. Like, those are the poor performances that this team offensively has had, and they're going to be negated by all the great performances that he has. So he definitely still has a chance, and he has a better chance, I think, than last year just because he isn't utilizing Stephon Diggs nearly as much as he did last year, and so that's allowing everybody to recognize Josh Allen, because when you're looking at the NFL and you see, oh, wow, look at that. Josh Allen leading the league in passing or whatever. Oh, but Stephon Diggs is also leading the league in receiving, so it's not as impressive. When you see just one guy balling out and what the other guy may seem like he's struggling, even though I don't think Stephon Diggs is struggling, he's just less of a focal point. That shows how important Josh Allen is because he's getting everybody involved and he's really leading that team. So Josh Allen definitely has a great case for the MVP.